Welcome to the AI Value Track podcast. We're going to be demystifying AI on the request of our customers. We're bringing together the right people, and I am in charge of dumbing it down. No jargon. We're going to explain everything. We're going to keep it simple. So this is podcast 1 in a series of 3, and I'm delighted to be joined by Ian Hogg, CEO at ShopWorks, and Ed Hogg, CEO at SolvedBy.AI. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Simon.
Edward, nice to meet you.
Hi, Simon. Thank you very much for having us.
So we're going to keep it simple for people. That's my key responsibility. So if we start talking jargon, I'll pull you up and get you to explain. This is about demystifying and keeping it real. So in terms of why we're doing the podcast, what are listeners going to be able to get out of it, and what's the hope?
Well, I hope, we want to share some of the experiences we've got of helping customers implement AI solutions, really. And what I find with the customers we speak to is they're nervous to start because they it's just a lack of awareness or knowledge. So hopefully we can share some of the things we've learned, some of the mistakes we've made, and some of the pitfalls we've come across, but also some of the good tips on how to do it right.
Perfect. And it's your day-to-day, Ed. What are you looking to help people with in terms of this series?
Yeah, I think Ian covered it quite well there. I think one of the key things is to get across the kind of steps that you would take, the steps you need to take before you start an AI project, what you should be doing during, and then how you make sure that you're taking the most advantage of it and really driving that ROI.
Perfect. So I'm going to start really, really simple. AI, artificial intelligence. Ed, do you want to just give us a little synopsis of what that actually means? It's everywhere. People are talking about it. What is AI?
So AI is the concept of a machine learning to be intelligent about a concept. So therefore it is artificial intelligence. Essentially, it means that a computer has encoded in itself or in some code how to solve a problem, and then it is when you go and ask it to solve that problem, it is assisting that. It used to be very narrow and really narrow to be or 2 seconds worth of tasks, and we're now up to about an hour's worth of human work. It can be done better by AI rather than by a human.
Perfect. So let's take that into the business place, Ian. Where are the areas that businesses are most open for AI use?
Well, I think, AI is a tool. So expanding on what Ed was saying is really they're just computer tools that sort of run themselves and, make decisions themselves. So anywhere where there's knowledge work, it is open to productivity improvements for AI. So when recent ChatGPT launch, which is the sort of leading, software model.
One of the tools, yeah.
Yeah, probably the leading, most well-known model, well-known tool. They said that coding was their, software development was one of their key objectives to be able to sort of, revolutionise that. But people are using it in, legal for contracts,
yep.
Finance, documentation, making podcasts. It's really anywhere where somebody can, a knowledge worker could deliver.
So cast our minds forward 10 years, then we're all going to be redundant. There's going to be no work for us to do because the machines are running it all and they're all speaking to each other. It is a scenario that people will have in their mind. I personally don't think that's true. Is that something you see, or is it an enabler, or is it a replacer?
I think 10 years is a long time to forecast.
Yeah, 5 minutes in this world seems a long time.
I encourage people, if we're doing a sort of an implementation project, to have like a 3-year vision. But so certainly 10 years, it's moved so fast in the last 2 years that it is possible. But I think right now and in the next year or two, it's an enabler, it's an enhancer. We sort of talk about it as like an assist. You hear the phrase co-pilot. Mm-hmm. So we encourage for our scheduling tool, we call it like a scheduling assist. Yep. It doesn't do everything. It assists you and makes you more productive. And then hopefully, at the moment, hopefully it takes away the real drudgery of work and then lets people focus on the more value added. So I think for the next year or two, that's definitely where we're at. Could it get better than that?
Probably.
Nobody knows.
Probably
really.
is the answer.
Yeah.
And I suppose to summarise what you've said there, it's helping people making decisions. It's not making the decision. Is there going to come a point where it will make the decision, do you think, in certain scenarios?
I think they call it human in the loop, which means that the AI does something, it presents some information to a human that makes the final decision. So, and the AIs are fallible.
Yeah,
I suppose just like we all are, but you hear there's a phrase called hallucinations, but you have to check the output. And so, how long before the AI, you might have another AI checking the output of the first AI, that's people are already starting to experiment with that stuff. But it's fallible, it remains fallible, so you have to have humans check stuff and input into it.
So anybody watching this, listening to this, who sits around a boardroom, it will be on their agenda. AI, whether it's a question mark, whether they're doing something with it, whether they think they should be doing something with it and aren't. Everybody's talking about it. You can't escape it. It's on the telly. It's on your phone. It's everywhere, right? So in your world, Ed, where do most organizations get stuck? Because there's two things at play here, right? There's tech, and we've talked about tools like ChatGPT. There's Gemini. There's Grok. There's all these tools there that you can type something into and ask it to do something, a pretty picture, a coding an app or whatever. So is it the tech that people get stuck on what to do, or is it the change that people get stuck on of, so now I've done something with it, what does that drive?
It's definitely change. It's a culture thing. It's if you look at some of the most recent surveys that came out only last weekend, 98% of people want to be involved in the decision at the place that they work when it comes to implementing AI. Mm-hmm. So there is an organizational want to be involved, but we aren't deploying it in the right way, and that's where projects are getting stuck. You've also got from a culture point of view, kind of data readiness. So according to some organizations like Hubble, you're only about 10% of businesses out there are ready for AI in terms of their data set, and therefore being data prepared, spending a lot of time making sure your data is in a usable format, somewhere where it can be easily accessed, where you can train it in a secure way. Those are the things that people are getting stuck on.
Training data then. So again, for the uneducated like me, what does training data mean?
So AIs learn based off of historical patterns. And so what you need to do is have your data ready so that you can put it into an AI. AI is thinking ones and zeros, and then like computers do, they've just learned the patterns for ones and zeros very well. And so a lot of people don't have their data in a place or a way where it's very well structured. They haven't labeled things correctly in data sets. So you've got everything being labeled as pints rather than perhaps identifying them as the type of pint they are, if you want to do that kind of stuff, zero alcohol versus alcohol, those kind of things. So those kind of data set training problems really cause that. So there's a culture about having your data prepared, but there's also allowing managers to be in the right place to make those kind of changes.
So sorry.
Yeah, I was going to just build on that one, Simon, because I think that I think it's like the biggest change management project of all time. Like every business is whether they like it or not, is going to be using AI,
and some probably are without knowing.
Yes,
it is the reality. Yeah,
and if your staff are using it at home, even if you haven't given it to them officially. Yeah. So. And what we find, so we've done quite a lot of implementations of forecasting and then workforce management scheduling. And those, when they fail for cultural reasons and poor, not poor management, but like lack of setting the expectation with the team, bringing the team along with them. And so I think it's definitely a culture. It's a culture challenge more than it's a tech. We haven't had any failures because of tech. We've had failures because, delayed projects and then having to restart and go round again and try it. It comes down to as sensitive as rebranding what you're calling the project. And like we were talking earlier about using the word assist rather than like auto schedule sort of implies that the AI is going to do everything, and schedule assist implies that
it's going to help
it's going to help you. Yeah. and those cultural differences matter, and one says you as the store manager aren't involved, and the other one says you are involved, So yeah, it's cultural, definitely.
So senior leaders then, how do they bring their teams with them? So in an organisation, you'll typically have the senior team that buy something, decide to go that way. That then trickles down, doesn't it, through the hierarchy down to store, restaurant level, whatever the organisation is. So what things should they be thinking about? You've mentioned a few there, but are there any other points you've got that they should be thinking about?
I think there's been quite a few studies where if senior management aren't living and breathing it and aren't involved, like leading from the front, setting an example, then it's likely to fail. But I think probably the key is setting objectives at the start. Making sure that making sure that the whole team are aware of those objectives, and they're aware of their role in it, and they're aware of why you're doing it. Because I think there was another survey, I think it was the same survey Ed was referring to, where most employees, more than a third, have zero trust in the company's AI plans, and 2/3 just don't trust the company at all.
Do they know it, I suppose, before you trust it?
And if you leave a vacuum, like you're not sharing with your employees what it is you're trying to achieve and why, then that vacuum might get filled with negative responses, or suspicion or lack of trust. So you need to fill that very early, and it's a key part of any project.
And most colleagues in an organisation will have Gemini, Grok, ChatGPT, all three on their phone. So again, you could be in situations where your colleagues are more armed with AI tools than actually the business itself.
Yeah. Well, there was a study done. So 90%, of the people in this study, 90% were using AI at home, or personally, and only 40% of the company, 40% of that is supplied by the company. And so that's another thing. You've got managers where, I've heard it's, in fact, we were guilty of this until we bought the licenses. So up until you buy the licenses and train people and give them some boundaries on what data they can and put into an AI, they are likely to be just doing it from home, on themselves, and putting your data or the company's data into a model where they don't know where that data is going to end up.
That led me to the next question, really, of where does that data go? Is it the same in all the different models? Is it different by model? Am I giving my data to train something else? I don't know.
Yeah, it depends. There has been some pretty public leaks very recently for some of the large language models. I guess you have to just do your research on it. So there are enterprise editions that allow you to restrict where that data goes, where you can take a copy of the code, for want of a better word, and only run your model on that without it seeing the rest of the internet, without it having to do that. But at the same time, you aren't getting the full effect because the AIs are learning all the time, so you want to be able to expose it. So do your research as to which one to use. There are more and more enterprise editions which have high quality security on them, and make sure you're doing that. The other thing, just to add to the point that you guys were just talking about, I think measuring adherence to the AI, as in the AIs make some really good recommendations. They make some decisions, but until you, as a leader, measure how well your team are adhering to what the AI recommends, you're not going to see that true ROI from what you're getting. So I think measuring of AI adherence, whatever the subject or decision is quite a useful metrics as for a leader to ensure that they bring their team along.
Yes, it kind of leads us nicely onto my kind of next point. The internet's full of cats dancing on the moon in a skateboard with a bloke behind on a hoverboard knitting. I'll make it up, but that'll be there somewhere, and that's all neat and fun and nice and all that kind of stuff, but doesn't really work in business. So how do we pick the first 3 user cases from a business point of view we want to do, and then define what success looks like?
I think you have to align with KPIs first. And if you are a business that is focusing on, let's take you being a retail business for a second.
Yep.
If you're a retail business and you're focusing on increasing sales, you can't go and deploy an AI that reduces your staff hours or is focused on reducing your staff allocation in a store, in a location, because they aren't aligned, and that will seep through. You won't have success in the projects because you haven't aligned with what your cultural goals are. So that's the first thing.
Yep.
The second is that you really want to focus on what you have the data for. So coming back to, do I have the data? Is it in a format where it can be trained now? How much effort do I need to get there? And then the third one is more focusing on your ideal workforce group. So as in, what are you looking for your workforce to do? What are the bits of their jobs that they enjoy? And what are the bits of their jobs that are just mundane, that they really aren't learning anything and they don't want to do anymore, that you can help replace? Because that really does lead to quite a high adoption rate on that kind of stuff. Keep them narrow. Make sure that they're very focused projects, and make sure your first 3 use cases are focused, are going to have a good return. You've got the data for them, and that you're able to align them to your KPIs.
I just building on that. So I think what Ed's referring to there is that there are some big projects where I don't know, optimize stock, and use AI to reduce the amount of stock in a warehouse. Those sort of projects, they're pretty, they're big, they're easy to set some measurements against, there's and that those are the sort of projects that often get a good ROI.
Yeah.
At the other end of the spectrum, there's also a bit of experimentation required. So, for instance, we as we're trying to get adoption in our company, like we're giving people ChatGPT. We don't yet know all the use cases they'll come up with them. They're more creative and innovative than I am. So actually, if you give people a $20 per month ChatGPT license and say, go play with it, and these are the rules you can and can't do, they're going to come up with examples that are some of them might be great and some of them actually don't save any time at all. So I think, and they're, and they don't, those individual tasks and little projects that individuals do with those tools is really hard. You're not going to have you're not going to set KPIs in advance, or you're just going to let them go and experiment. And for those, I think it's best to have a shared, look what I've done that's cool, and I've saved half an hour a day, So I think there's sort of two ends of the spectrum. These big set piece projects that Ed was referring to, where the management are trying to get 1% off of some sort of big metric, and then there's share the tools around and share the best use cases, and then hopefully something positive will come out of it.
So a kind of play and learn type, and just experiment between the teams. And then there's a phrase, shadow AI, which again you'll have to explain to me, that we should be avoiding, apparently.
Yeah, I think that's what I was hinting at earlier when I was saying that if you don't supply them the tools, that they will, people will use them themselves. So,
right,
and funnily enough, a lot of, a simple project, this is how we did it internally in ShopWorks, is we did a survey, what tools are you using yourself? Is the company paying for it? Because you find, these tools, they're not massively expensive. They're £20 here. And, and if you've got a software engineer on, 50, 60, 70,000 pounds, then a £20 addition to make them a few percent more productive is not a huge investment. So what you find is that you get a proliferation of these tools, but quite often the shadow AI bit is that they're implementing them themselves. They've got their own license, or they're using the free version. And the way to it's not the most complex project to run. You do a survey, find out what people are using, find out what they need, do a little risk assessment on what tools you do, and then pick your official tools, buy them for people, and then train them. And I think that the key bit there, the final bit, is training. It's I think quite, you hear stories of people sign up for a load of ChatGPT licenses. Nobody's using them because nobody's been trained or encouraged to use them. So just to summarize, the shadow element is people using their own tools.
Yep.
outside of the sort of control or guidelines of the company.
But potentially using company data in it.
Yeah, there are risks to that, considerable risks.
And in terms of before rollout, Ed, are there typical point stages that checklist that people should think about before they start adopting, building on Ian's point?
Yeah, not to be boring, but data again. Data is one of the most important. Aside from that, you need to have an owner. You need to have somebody who's owning the project. It's classic project management, really. You need to have an owner. You need to have clear communications internally as to what the success criteria are for rollout. Also, what's going to be happening within it. Build trust within the organization, and then you need to have one of the quick checklists I have is I make sure that we have a planned feedback point. So these AIs can learn at such a rapid rate. You have to take advantage of that. You have to, if you're implementing in a factory, go and ask the people on the shop floor if they're using a tool. Is it successful? If you're working on a cruise ship, you need to go and ask the passengers whether they're liking whatever you're doing. You need to go and ask these people as soon as you possibly can to try and get the learning into it, so that it can learn quicker, so you've got better adoption. So I think those are the things that I would focus on.
Any tips, Ian or Ed, again, jointly for avoiding failure on top of those?
So I think select the right project. I know this sounds obvious, but if you almost want to go for the low-hanging fruit. So if I was coming into a company and somebody said, right, we want to start adopting AI, like I said, there's those two ends of the spectrum. But if we were on the sort of bespoke end where it's a big set piece project, I'd be looking to try and get what they call a halo effect project, i.e. get a big win. So pick the project that's most likely to deliver that, get everybody behind it, get the high priority, and then the organisation will learn from that project, but also it'll be inspired by that project. Because if people are running around saying, I've saved 2% of my stock costs, or increased sales by 1.5%, then funnily enough, other people will get enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, I think for me, realize that it's assisted. Yeah, it's an assistance tool. It is not replacing a workforce. Use it to assist your workforce. Don't use it to replace your workforce. So enhance, not replace, I think is the phrase. And I think that as long as you can you do that, you're going to bring along your staff. You're going to drive an ROI within your business, and you're going to enthuse people and use that halo effect, as Ian was talking about, to really increase the adoption of AI within your organisation.
Well, one of the phrases that gets talked about a lot in the space is whether you're using AI for efficiency or productivity. So really what that's saying is, if you're using it for efficiency, i.e. there are managers going, right, we can put the AI in and we can cut staff costs, and it's no wonder, staff don't trust the
machines
motives.
are coming.
So, the machines are coming. And then the other one is actually fine. If we take the same team we've got now and give them all the right tools, how much more can we do? So how much better, can we sell more? Can we build more product? Can we deliver more podcasts? Whatever it is that your output is, if you use AI, if you make your whole team 20% more productive, could you get 20% more growth from this relatively the same cost? Or do you want to take 20% of cost out by putting AI in? And as you'd expect, there are managers that take both, and that is a sort of fundamental debate that goes on. And as you'd expect, different companies will take a different approach.
Yeah, and some might want a hybrid, a mix of both. But current trading environment's tough. Everybody, whatever you're in, retail, hospitality, manufacturing, consultancy, whatever, everybody's cost base is going up. So saving your way out of it always feels like a relatively blunt tool. Long term, short term might be. But actually that freeing up time to drive service, better conversations, if you are in a physical environment, drive average transaction value to your customers, because getting new ones is tricky. So selling more to the same is probably the sweet spot you'd want to see it used in, I guess.
Yeah. Or give them a better service so you don't lose them. Retention is a good thing.
Absolutely.
The CEO of Shopify did quite a famous memo to his staff, and I say famous amongst AI geeks. So he did a memo and said, before you create any new hires, consider whether that job could be done via an AI. And one of the things that is probably happening is people are hiring. I think it's already having an impact on hiring, particularly at the more junior levels. There's plenty of data out there to support that. So I think where people are getting the cost saving is they're not necessarily letting existing people go. They're just not adding to they're using it to put headcount freezes in whilst generating growth.
Yeah.
So that would be a hybrid version of it. But the objective is still to generate the growth. And of course, it ought to be more profitable growth if you've managed to not have to add too much more staff in to generate that growth.
Perfect. Ed, Ian, thank you very much for joining us on episode 1. I think my key takeaway is you've got to be thinking about it, you've got to be starting, but the underlying data is just paramount. So making sure you've got the data in the right format. And again, it speaks through even if you're not on the journey at the moment, you've got to be preparing that data because at some point you're going to be on the journey. But it sounds like there's a wealth of opportunity and productivity, efficiency gains to be had. Some are there, some are maybe a bit behind, some are starting to get ahead. But thanks for your insights, and we'll speak to you on future episodes.